Hi again, it's me, Michaela. For those of you who haven't been here before or are new to the channel, I am a narcissistic abuse, physical abuse, domestic violence survivor, whatever you want to call it. The actions are all the same. They're just called different names in different courthouses in different states. So today I am covering the topic on regarding how abusers can further use the family court system to continue the behaviors that they're doing. Because remember, oftentimes when we are on our way out the door, already out the door, the abuse doesn't stop. The way that psychology sort of explains domestic violence abusers is pretty simple. Just the object relations theory, which I actually covered on an earlier video. And also, again, for those of you who don't know, I'm a psych major. That's what I graduated in. It's what I'm going to continue to study with my master's and such. So my expertise is specifically tailored towards domestic violence. And this can be for people who are still in the situation, finding their way out. This can be for people who are already out and kind of wondering what the heck just happened to them in the courtroom. This happens a lot. These methods that I'm about to mention happen a lot. I would dare say that about 100% of the time, unless the ending of the relationship gave you a restraining order or some kind of protective order or a very, very specific child custody plan. These methods you're going to relate to, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So the first way that abusers continue to bully in their eyes, property, it is, we are not property, just so I'm clear, but this is how that they, oh my gosh, words, this is how they see the victims in the situation and will continue to see us. And that's their problem. Again, that's none of our business how they really see us. The first step in beating them in court is just to recognize how they see the world in order to combat them on their level, while also speaking the language of the family court system and representing yourself. If you don't have an attorney, you're going to have to study these things or you will get mowed over. They're just very good at being the victim. So these are things that you have to pull up, and you're on the right track. So the first way that they do this is by, frivolous lawsuits. So frivolous just means fake, or, made up. Maybe they're finding a loophole and they're thinking that they have a good avenue to sue you for something, such as, if you, for example, if you were ordered to return, let's say, an engagement ring, oftentimes you don't have to return a wedding ring because that was a gift to you from them. So you legally won't have to return it. It's a good bribing technique. If you need the sort of dark psychology approach to it, it's a good way to get them sort of off your tail. If that's something that they fight over, just give it to them. But frivolous lawsuits, filing senseless lawsuits that have little merit for the point of forcing the opposing party to hire an attorney and incur unnecessary expenses. So even if the lawsuit is determined, to be denied or, not allowed, thrown out, dismissed, things like that, they will still file things to make you spend your money and energy and time still prioritizing them. Okay, it's important to distinguish. Another way they do this is by filing false accusations. Narcissists will often beat their opponents. They'll often beat us in court, in family court especially, by falsely projecting their issues onto the opponent. This false accusation forces the opponent to be on the defensive and causes the court system to frown when the opponent makes a similar charge against the narcissist. This is important. It's kind of interesting because there's really no pro se method around the false accusations. The only way that you can do this is by asking them direct questions that require direct answers. So you really have to think about your questioning, because you're going to be able to cross-examine. If you guys are in court together, you're going to be able to ask them questions regarding their testimony. So whenever you're in court, especially pro se, bring a notepad and a pen and write everything down as it comes. You got to write fast because they're going to be rapid firing these responses at the judge. That's a technique that they picked up through childhood trauma. And it's a good way to distract people like their own abusers or, maybe if they're getting grilled by an abusive parent, if they just start rattling things out, the abusive parent kind of doesn't know what to catch first and just kind of flusters them. So it's a technique that they've learned through childhood trauma. It's really, really simple to cut to the nitty gritty. You just have to be really well into your therapy, your own self-care, your own sort of radical forgiveness, radical acceptance, whatever you want to call it, in order to disassociate from the drama that they're about to try to bring to the table in front of the judge. And nothing is hands off. When you are fighting a narcissist in court, I cannot stress this enough. Everything down to your sex life is going to be brought up. So it's important to be prepared and understand that and be willing to come forward with any weird information that you might have to. Things about your sex life, the judge isn't going to entertain that for the most part. Unnecessary information, the judge isn't really going to want to waste their time with it. And if you engage in a conversation back, so if you engage in defensive conversation back with them through the dialogue in front of a judge, they are going to pick up the vibes that you two are just can't get along, and the whole hearing is a joke, and everything is really going to be thrown out. So you really have to know when to engage and when to disengage. Entrapment is another method. Narcissists will incite and encourage their victims to act irrationally and then call the police on them. This is also known as what? Reactive abuse, right? It is a term defined in many different psychological theories. You can find it online anywhere you go. It's a way for them to, again, rapid fire things at you and get you to emotionally respond. This is why in almost every single one of my videos, I'm telling people to go to therapy, to go do, like I do therapy and I do, jiu-jitsu. It's a really good DBT skill. It's a really good therapeutic skill, okay? It's going to put you in the moment. You're going to kind of forget about the trauma, so to speak, temporarily. It's going to get you to be more cognitively engaged. I always advocate for martial arts when we're healing. And it gives us a sense of control back too, right? Because we just lost all of our control for a series of years, usually, sometimes months. And so it gives us that sense of control. But anyways, so while technically entrapment is, while technically inciting the reactional response isn't technically entrapment because it isn't a law enforcement officer doing the act, the victim will nonetheless feel trapped. And this event is then later used as a threat in another lawsuit or civil action. So a really good way that they can do this is they can film things like drop-offs or pickups and get you to emotionally respond, and then later on use that video recording in a courtroom. So it's very, very important that you stay emotionally regulated and relaxed. Remember, everything passes. It just takes time. So the fourth way that they do this is by gaming the system. And this means using the laws designed to protect a person as a point of manipulation against that same person. For instance, not allowing a child to see or speak to the other parent on their time, because that would give the other parent more time than them. Child custody laws are there for the best interest of the child, and if the child misses the other parent, they should be allowed to speak with them. I see this oftentimes used if you are pro se, you need to, pro tip, you need to put in exact times and exact dates. You cannot use general language with these people. Sometimes you can in your initial, like if you want full custody and you just want to get it filed and done and signed, by all means, file a generic full custody plan, court order, motion, whatever you want to name it in whatever state you're in, and just get that full custody that you need. But then you have to come back and make specifics, because anything that is not a specific, for example, if you share custody or share visitation or something, and the kid is in a different time zone with the full custodial parent, if you don't specify a time zone on that child custody order, and let's say they're an hour behind you, and you're an hour ahead, but if you show up maybe early or late on either side of that, you can be held responsible if it's not in the custody order in black and white. And they are, again, really good at being the victim. So they will always, claim one parent or the other to be, they will always make sure the victim is seen in a negative light, and sort of really manipulate that court order. So everything has to be very, very black and white. You need dates, you need times, you need time zones, you need states, whatever you may think you need, put it in there, because it's going to be manipulated against you down the road if you don't. Senseless motions and hearings. In order to delay the process, that narcissists the narcissist will file senseless motions, excessive hearings, and multiple postponements or continuance. This is, again, done to drain us and our financial resources and create an atmosphere of a never-ending lawsuit. For a narcissist, we have to remember, for a narcissist, and oftentimes domestic violence abusers, any attention is good attention. As long as they're taking up your time, they're happy, they're content. Even if it's in a negative light, any attention is good attention for them. So they will oftentimes file nonsense things to make you have to show up and, in essence, just drain you. That's just who they are. So certain states have different measures. I know there's motions that you can file, kind of locking anybody out of filing anything additional for like 2 years or such. I haven't gotten into those too much. I have heard about them, so they exist. And if you think you're in that situation, you can always file it. So that's going to take care of a lot of different things, and eventually the abuser will just kind of time out, at least for a little while. Committing perjury. This is a good one. So narcissists will lie about matters that are not material and are inconsequential to the case just to anger their opponent. This is technically not perjury unless the lie is relevant to the outcome, and this slight lie in the face of other statements further taints their whole testimony for the opponent and is intended by the narcissist to frustrate the process. So, lying. That is a big thing in court, and that's why I did a filing video on how to document every correspondence. If you are involved in a domestic violence situation, you have to record and document every single circumstance. Because if you don't, and they lie, and you have nothing to prove otherwise, it's going to be bad for you with the judge, because they know how to be the victims. So you really, really have to have all your ducks in a row and have every source, every piece of documentation that you really possibly can. And I can do another recording. I can do another video on, recording your encounters or documentation purposes as well. And then another way is using the loopholes. I referenced this earlier with the court order having to be very, very specific. Narcissists love to find loopholes in the law and use it in their favor. However, if their opponent were to utilize a loophole against them, the attacks would be ruthless. For the narcissist, this is a one-way street where only they can dodge an issue. This is important because what will happen is they'll say, for example, that you're denying visitation, and you have documentation saying, didn't deny, just needed it to happen this specific way in the best interest of the child. Then they'll go on, once that sort of perspective was debunked, then they'll go on to use a loophole in your court order maybe and say, well, the court order didn't say that, and because you hadn't updated it for a couple years. So they'll really manipulate those loopholes. They'll completely disregard the fact that they lied in court or the fact that they said a false accusation, any accusations at all, spoke really negatively of you. They will deny it right in front of everybody's face. And the issue with this is that most of society is normal, so to speak. So they can't fathom the idea of what the narcissist is doing. So your story already right out the gate is going to be hard for a judge to digest because no normal person would do the things that they're doing. And now they're going on to further the abuse by lying, manipulating the system, frivolous lawsuits, frivolous, child custody motions, things like that. So you're really fighting an uphill battle from the start. So that's why a lot of us, like me, like Judge Anthony, like the YouTube channel Command the Courtroom, all put out these videos because of this massive influx of narcissistic behaviors. And the final way that I'm going to mention is jury tampering. So this would include sort of like a criminal aspect if they're going through charges with domestic violence, like, I don't know, maybe strangulation or something to that effect. Oftentimes, they will be bribing or intimidating members of a jury to make a decision a certain way. And while this is usually the stuff of movies, it still does happen in the courtroom. Narcissists frequently believe that they are above the law and will not get caught. This is not a fantasy that they live in. This is their real world. So they very much so believe that they are above the law, and anything you do or say is a lie, is false, is crazy, is bitter, and they are simply above you. So it's very important in your child custody case to stick to facts, remain emotionally balanced, get your therapy on board. I can't recommend that enough. If you have things like Medicaid, a lot of single parents are on Medicaid. I know I was on Medicaid for a long time. They have services. They have family, therapy situations that can also make you a better parent too. Whether we like it or not, we've been through a lot of trauma. So in order to stop that cycle and move forward in a healthy way, therapy is something we're gonna have to do. It just is what it is. So that's it. I wanted to cover some basic ways on how narcissists use the courts to continue their abuse. I think awareness is key. Either way, if you liked it, thumbs up. If you didn't like it, don't care. Move on. You got this, though. Just keep going. Keep doing your research. Keep moving forward. Keep fighting the good fight. This is not permanent. So just hop over to Judge Anthony's channel. He does really good videos on quality content regarding narcissists. Command the Courtroom is another one. Judge Anthony is obviously a previous judge, a bench judge, I think is what it's called. And then Command the Courtroom, she's an attorney out of Arizona. So she's giving really good legal advice on YouTube. You got this.